קדימה נפשי אלייך הומיע עיני במר לך בוכיע נפשי אלייך הומיע עיני
Shalom, shalom, shalom. My name's Michael Sahno, and welcome to this episode of the 12 Cities in Israel podcast, the only positive podcast on the state of Israel. Hey, what's up? How's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 14. I've got, for those of you who watch the video version, I've got a brand new microphone, and also for those of you who watch the video version, it has come across to me to let you guys know to please, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, become a part of the 12 Cities in Israel community. And this is episode 14. So I have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, before we broach the subject, I need to and would like to give a couple of shout outs to my sponsors. My first one is iConnect. iConnect. Engagement with Israel that earns you rewards. Earn points and connect with Israel with articles, games, quizzes, polls, and more. So what exactly is iConnect? Well, iConnect is a social gaming platform where you can play, earn points, and receive cool prizes all for free. Their goal is to help you stay connected with Israel no matter where on the globe you are. Now, why should you play? Because iConnect introduces you to a unique way to acquaint yourself with all things Israel while working towards winning once-in-a-lifetime experiences. So head on over to www.iconnect.co.il. That's www.iconnect.co.il and start playing now. Before we move on, our next one is from our friends at Israel Phones. And Israel Phones is the leading provider of communication devices for people traveling to Israel. Israel Phones offers SIM cards, MiFi devices, which are mobile Wi-Fi hotspots, travel products, and serves the connectivity needs of tour groups, synagogues, schools, community missions, study programs, and individuals. Supplying you with international prepaid SIM card cell phones and USB portable modem hotspot rentals. Right now, because of watching this show, 12 Cities in Israel, Israel Phones will give you a free SIM card, which is a $15 value, if you spend $30 or more on their site. All you have to do to get this deal is to use the coupon code 12 Cities in Israel. That's the number 12 Cities in Israel. All one word, no spaces when checking out on your next order. For more information on what Israel Phones can do for you and to get this great deal, please visit www.israelphones.com. That is www.israelphones.com. They're great over there. The people at iConnect are great as well. Check both of them out. All right, so this episode 14, is going to be, I don't know if it's gonna, controversial might not be the right word, but okay. So originally this episode, I had broken it down into two parts, and the first part was going to be on the SHUK. For those of you who don't know what the SHUK is, the SHUK is it's an open air market, and let me give you a little bit of history. So Shuks are open air markets that exist in the Middle East, North Africa, and basically Western Asia. So we're talking all the way up into Turkey. Some could even argue that there are Shuks in because there are open air markets in Italy, there are open air markets in Greece, but primarily the SHUK, as it's known today, is in the Middle East and North Africa. So I was going to tell you guys about that. There are a number of them, and I will tell you about them. And then what I think I'll do, that's what I'll do. I'll tell you about the SHUK. I'll tell you what's so great about this SHUK, what's so cool about this SHUK, and all the information that I found. And then we will delve into the controversial aspect of it. So I always say that this is a positive podcast at the beginning, but what's important about keeping things positive is objectivity. And to be objective, you need all the information, all the facts, everything. So I'm going to give it all to you as objectively as I can. I consider myself to be relatively objective. So before we get into that, let's talk about the SHUK. Now, there are a couple of anyone who's ever been to Israel, and if you mention the word SHUK, their eyes light up because it is basically a cornucopia. Now, SHUK comes from the Aramaic, and it was, if I read this right, I think it was acquired by the Assyrian. No, it was acquired. Aramaic acquired it from Assyriac, which was Assyrian. I think it's Assyriac. And then it, over time, developed into use in Hebrew, Arabic, a couple of other different languages. There was one of the things that they said is in Morocco, it's called soko, which is a Spanish-ized version, which I find that pretty interesting. That's kind of neat. And that has to do with the expulsion of the Muslims from Spain during the fall of the Muslim component of the empire that existed in Spain, and it fled down into Morocco, or existed in Morocco. I don't know the actual history. I know some of it, so I'm doing a real good job of sounding like an intellectual ass right here. But essentially, the word's a widespread. It's used in a lot of different places, and it's all meant to cover the same thing, which is an open air market. In Persian, actually, I didn't know this. I found this out in my what do you call it? Research. Bazaar is the Persian equivalent of SHUK or suk in Arabic. So that's pretty neat. So if you ask anyone who's ever been to Israel about the SHUK, they know exactly what you're talking about. They'll tell you about the SHUK. They'll tell you how cool it is. They'll tell you about all the things that you can do. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. For those of you who don't know what it is, I'm going to tell you what the SHUK is. Okay, so there are a couple of them. They're usually in major cities. Jerusalem has an incredibly famous one, Machane Yehuda, which is the large market, west of the old city. And in this market, you can get anything. You can get vegetables. You can get meat. You can get a full meal. You can get all kinds of stuff. You can get knickknacks. So it's funny because the Shuks throughout the country are radically different from each other, but they're yet similar at the same time. So what's neat about that is Machane Yehuda in Jerusalem is very tight and very narrow, and it's almost cavern-like. It almost feels underground. But when you go to the SHUK in Tel Aviv, in the Carmel Market, which is the name of the SHUK in Tel Aviv, it's tight, but it's tight from the people. There's a lot more space. It's a lot more open. And then when you go down to Beersheba and you go to the open air market there, the SHUK there, it's an entirely different feel altogether. It's a little bit more wide open. It's a little bit more, you have a lot more shoulder room. But there's more room down in Beersheba. But there's still that same sensation, that same exotic feel. And this is my, what do you call it? My when someone hasn't been out enough. But I like to think of myself as someone who's been out in the world. I am somewhat worldly. I'm not as worldly as some, but I do have some legs that have gotten me to quite a number of different places on quite a number of different continents. But still, there is a reveling in the exoticness of it. You feel something in a shuk that you don't feel anywhere else. It's funny too, because when I say shuk, the first thing I think of is actually not Machane Yehuda. It's this grocery store in Beersheba called Maksani HaShuk, which is it's a play on the shuk word. It's a grocery store. It's a supermarket. But Maksani HaShuk feels like a supermarket that you could find anywhere. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, all the labels are in Hebrew, but still feels the same. But an open-air market in New York City is nothing like an open-air market in Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv or in Beersheba. And on top of that, all of those markets are different. You're in the Carmel market. You're not in Machane Yehuda. And when you're in Machane Yehuda, you're not in Beersheba. So one of the interesting things about Machane Yehuda is that and this is something that is specific to these types of markets. So there are different times for different things in the shuk. So first thing in the morning, that's when a lot of the shoppers come for food and stuff like that. And then later in the afternoon, then you have people coming especially in Machane Yehuda, there are a lot of restaurants. There's a whole section of it that's all restaurants. They have this one place called Beer Bazaar, I think it is, and it's amazing. But it's inside Machane Yehuda, and there are also a number of restaurants inside this shuk. Now, and it's funny because it drove my wife nuts when we went there. I wanted to go there. I wanted to go to Beer Bazaar, but I guess when I had gotten there before, it hadn't changed over. It was dark, but we had gotten there so late that it had changed over. It changes over to like a nightclub scene. So the restaurants there, all of a sudden they're pumping, like dance music and stuff like that. And it's an entirely different crowd than about 2 or 3 hours before. So that's just something to keep in mind. Depending on when you go, that dictates what type of shuk you're going to see. It's really kind of funny because the shuk that you see on when you go to Google and you type up Machane Yehuda and you look it up and you see all the pictures, you won't see that in the evening. You may not see that in the afternoon. They may have filmed that in the morning. This is specifically visible when you go all the way down to Beersheba and you go to their open air market. Their open air market by around 3:00 shuts down. All the food stalls disappear, all the produce, all the meat, and some of the shops over on, because it's set up into now. This is also something I'm trying to cover a lot in a short time, and I'm not really doing an excellent job. Hold on, let me take a sip of this. This microphone is very, very specific. If I get over here, you can't hear my voice, so you have to stay right in front of it. It's going to be a learning curve. Yay! 12 cities in Israel. So you go to the SHUK and you go at different times, you're going to basically see a different place altogether. Now, and you have to understand that the SHUK is also broken up into different sections. And the different sections dictate what exactly you're going to find. So when you come off the main street and go into Carmel Market in Tel Aviv, it's a very touristy section. You're going to find knickknacks. You're going to find artists. You're going to find, like Judaica. For those of you who don't know what Judaica is, that is like menorahs for home, Chanukiah, which ironically a lot of people call Chanukiahs menorahs. They're not. It's different number of arms. So you're going to find stuff like that. You're going to find more chamsas, the hand thing, than you can shake a stick at, in all different colors and all different, flavors. So you're also going to find the obligatory T-shirt shop. For some reason, Israelis are obsessed with selling T-shirts, and it would make sense if the T-shirts made sense, but some of the T-shirts are really just ridiculous. I have no examples, but some of them are crude too, and I can't mention them on this show, but you'll find and they're all pressed right there in front of you. So they'll have all these T-shirt designs on a wall, and you pick it, and they ask you what size, and they pull out the thing right there, and they press the shirt for you. We got our son his, as I say, obligatory. I Heart Tel Aviv T-shirt in the SHUK. So Machane Yehuda has that as well, but you don't see it as much. All of that stuff, which is, and this is interesting because, so Carmel Market in Tel Aviv has all of the touristy tchotchkes right there as soon as you walk into the SHUK. Okay, before you get to the food, before you get to any of it, right there, as soon as you get into the SHUK. Machane Yehuda has, it's interesting, not as much of it, a little bit higher end. There are some jewelry stores actually in the SHUK in Jerusalem. But all of the knickknacks and tchotchkes are in the old city. And arguably, it can be said there is another SHUK right inside the Damascus gate in the Muslim quarter, because as soon as you walk in, there are fruit stands, food places, all kinds of stuff. I personally don't know. That may be a SHUK. I don't know that it actually is. But what's weird is the old city in itself, a large portion of it is a big SHUK. And I could be incorrect in calling it that, but to me, that's what it appears as. The Beersheba SHUK is pretty great, though. And it's a lot more, I don't want to say that. So the Jerusalem SHUK, and in the old city, they are pushier in terms of trying to get the sale. They want to get you, but there are also a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of potential for people to buy things. So they want to get you in and out. Boom. You want this? You want this? No, you don't? Okay. How about you? So there's a movement. There's a flow to it. That for some shoppers, some people want to window shop. Some people want to look around. Some people want to take their time. In the Carmel Market, it's not like that it's almost it's almost as if they're indifferent. You buy it, you don't buy it, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, which I think is kind of funny. But they also get, I mean, every time I've been there, it's been slam packed. Now, the SHUK, and I think that's why I like the SHUK in Beersheba, because it's so chill. They take the time, no problem. What do you need? I can find that for you. And they have the best pillows, by the way. And anyone who wants to know where those pillows are, I will look it up. I will get the name the next time I'm there. But you will heaven, absolute heaven. And I was upset that I had to leave them there when I came back. But I brought my blanket back, and my wife sits on the couch with it all the time. I was able to get bedding when I was there. But all right, so there you go. You can get bedding. Anything that you can get at the mall, you can get at the SHUK. Anything that you can buy at the grocery store, you can get at the SHUK. And you will get a good price for it. If, and only if, you are conscientious of how much a thing costs and how much it's worth to the seller, basically. So, haggling is an art form and is a necessity at the SHUK. You have to. It's funny because, and I don't know if this is culturally incorrect, but I grew up with, we would take school class trips to Chinatown, and they would say you always have to haggle. The same thing goes for when you go to the SHUK, you have to haggle because the individual is going to try to get, hey, this is how much I spent on it. I want to get the most profit, as I want to get the maximum amount of profit that I can. And you, of course, as the buyer, do not want to pay as much as you possibly could have to. So haggling, and what's funny is this haggling that you're engaging in when you're in Machane Yehuda has been traditionally going on for thousands of years. How cool is that? So let's say you go to Machane Yehuda and you say, I want to buy this t-shirt. How much is it? Well, it's X amount of shekels. Well, I only want to pay this amount of shekels. Okay, I'll take it. Somebody else had that conversation 3,000 years ago. Crazy. Blows my mind. Nuts. So yeah, that's bananas. It's one of those kind of things where you go, holy cow, I can't believe that. Anyway, so all right, so the SHUK. Wow. Oh, wait a minute. So there's those. I haven't been to the SHUK in where do you call it? I haven't been to the SHUK in Haifa, and I heard it's a great one. But it's in a really weird place. It's like not in a place, from what I understand, it's not in a place that I would traditionally go. Now, I spent last episode talking about Haifa and where the 3 stops are. And one of them is the beach. The other one is Bakalim. The other one is Haifa Merkaz, Haifa Center. And apparently, and I didn't know this when I was there. So apparently the SHUK in Haifa is near the main train station, Haifa Merkaz, Haifa Center. And it's not a far walk. But you're suckered into walking up that huge mountain because of the Baha'i Gardens. I say suckered. It's awesome. It's totally worth it. But next time I go up to Haifa, I'm going to go there, and I'll tell you guys about it. But I also want to mention, and most major cities have a SHUK of some sort. And one of the interesting things is there is a SHUK can be, it generally, according to the definition, it's just got to be an open air market. That's all. It's a centralized open air market. Because of that, there is another one that's in Beersheba that's spoken about that I have never seen. I'm beating myself up over it. I wish I had seen it. I wish I had gone to it. It's supposed to be really cool, but the thing is, you have to get up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to go to it. Ugh. No, thanks, man. That's crazy. I don't want to do that. But it's supposed to be amazing. So they have what's called the Bedouin Market. And it's near the open air SHUK. And people literally come in, from what I understand, people literally come in from the desert and sell their wares. Now, it's not going to be top quality stuff. Because you're not, they don't have the capital to go out and buy stuff. And I've been told that some of the stuff, the clothing there's a lot of clothing. There is some food. There is cooked food. But check this out. You could buy goats. You could buy livestock at this thing. So if you're in Israel and you decide you want to buy a goat, go to Beersheba and they will sell you one at the Bedouin Market. All right, so let me take a sip of coffee real quick. We're at the halfway mark, and I would like to give a couple shout outs to two more of our sponsors. I sound subdued right now. And I should explain that. So what I have to talk about is weighing a little bit on my head, and it's dampening some of the joy that I have in talking about Israel right now. So, but, let's do this. All right. Yeah, say that right before you go into your ads, Michael. Really nice. All right. So our first message that I'd like to read is from Neviot. Neviot flavored water. Nature at its best taste. Neviot delivers you with a true combination of health and pleasure. Based on Neviot natural mineral water, one of its kind in Israel, it is enhanced with 5 B group vitamins. It's naturally sweetened. It is low in calories, only 35 to 40 calories for 8 fluid ounces. There are no preservatives, no color additives. It is available in delicious, indulging flavors. I love that. Apple, peach, and grape. If you're in Israel, you should be drinking Neviot. For more information, check out their website at www.neviotglobal.com/en/home. That is www.neviotglobal.com/en/home. Now, if you would like to get this water, you can go to our next sponsor, and they are Makolet Online. Makolet Online's main goal is to make Israeli groceries and Judaic products affordable and available to everyone in the USA and Canada. Their online store carries items that are unavailable in most places in North America. Things like tahini, Israeli chocolates, frozen borekas, and the Neviot water that we are drinking here today. At Makolet Online, you will find your favorite Israeli goods or simply enjoy brand new flavors. All of their products are kosher, and most are manufactured in Israel. If you want the taste of Israel delivered to your home, visit www.makoletonline.com and order today. For an added bonus, if you use the code 12 cities in Israel, and that's just like the other code, the number 12 cities in Israel, all one word, no spaces, you will receive 15% off of your entire purchase. So, again, visit www.makoletonline.com. That's www.makoletonline.com and order today. And today, from Makolet Online, we have, what is this? Ooh, snackless date, cranberry, and cashew bar. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Dude, who decided to put dates and cranberries and all right, so this bar is basically full of everything that I love. They are so fun. Last week I had something from the same company, Snackless. It's a company that tries to help you manage what you eat. So they offer healthy products. One of them was a appetite suppressant gum that's made in the Dead Sea from Hoodia. So on the back it says, from our fields in the desert between the Red Sea and the Dead Sea, we bring you nature's hunger buster, a combination of highly nutritious medjool dates, select nuts and seeds, tasty fruit, and our own pure effective Hoodia parviflora plant. Try one daily for delicious diet control and snack less. Dude, they are awesome. And Liam, thank you. Liam from Makolet Online, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. They are so great. All right. I really appreciate what they do because they send us, they support us, and they give us that code, and they give us a care package to come and bring onto the show to give you guys some ideas on what you can get from them. And there's a ton of stuff. Oh my gosh, their website's pretty great. All right, so I got that done, and I got the SHUK done. Now I have to talk about something that ticks me off a little bit. All right, so and there are a couple of levels of it. So as I was doing, let me give you hit it in one sentence or two sentences, Michael, right? Basically, there is and it, I don't know if it's let's be honest, it is an overt attempt to erase the Jewish aspect to some things. So I was doing research on the SHUK. I was doing research on, what the etymology being what the history of the word is, how the word developed, where it came from, where the SHUK traditionally came from. And I started noticing that the Wikipedia page, because I looked in a couple of different places, but I was struck by the Wikipedia page, and the Wikipedia page mentioned it's weird. So when you go to the Wikipedia page, and if it's a word that is in a different language, they usually phonetically sound it out. They give the phonetic spelling, then they give the different languages that it might be in. And they showed it in Hebrew, but then they didn't mention it again. And then all through the history of the SHUK, they talked about these Shuks, which is the Arabic, but the SHUK in Jerusalem is ancient. Ironically, and this is interesting, this is actually kind of interesting, and I didn't know this until I went down there. The SHUK in Beersheba is really old. The actual building itself and the coverings are not old, but the location where it is in the old city, it's been there for hundreds of years. And then the one in Haifa and the one in Akko, which is north, they've been there for a long time. But they weren't mentioned. The Shuks in different Middle Eastern souks I'm sorry. If the ones in Arabic countries are Shuks. The ones in Arabic countries were mentioned, but the ones in Israel were there was no even mention of any historical Shuks within the confines of Israel. There was one that was mentioned in Jerusalem, one that I'd never heard of, but I think that might be one in East Jerusalem. And then there was, in a list of them, Machane Yehuda Market was put in there. Which I was like, all right, what are you complaining about? It's there. But it is none of the... All right, so the importance of it. So if you were giving information to people outside of an area, you would give them information that would be relative to their understanding of things. And I think that mentioning, the Carmel Market and Machane Yehuda within the confines of the article would have been important. But I think it was not seen as important enough to be in the article. It almost felt like it was more important to point out that a shuk is Arabic, which is not necessarily valid. There are suks in Arabic countries, but the crossroads, what do they call it? The crossroads of civilization. This is where the development of this model came from. It came from Turkey. It came from Syria. It came from the Levant, Jerusalem and Akko and Haifa and Egypt and the arc across over all the way to Morocco. So that's important. I think omission of Israel in this larger story of the Shuk is purposeful. I think they did it on purpose. I think the writers of it were trying to elevate, perhaps not diminish, the Jewish role, but definitely to elevate. And this ties into a larger discussion that I'm so hesitant to bring up, because historical narrative is important. It's important for academic honesty. So if you want to have facts, if you want to have information, if you want to be objective, as I always say, you have to rely on honest academic facts. And omission, all right, so on the outside, it's just hurt feelings. Big deal. They didn't mention your Israel, okay? And on its face, you're right. I need to toughen up, turtle back a little bit and just have a stronger shell. But then let's look at it from an academic perspective. And there is an omission of information. And if you can omit information in this one area, then you have license to omit information everywhere. And it sounds trivial, but it's not. It's important. It's so important that it's the foundation of our academic research as a whole. You know what I mean? Honesty of information. So that was this microphone really reacts to my breath. All right. So this all ties into a larger thing, which is this, and it's funny because to me, it's a silly thing. But it will lead to an incredibly heated argument, among, participants. And that is, so one of the things is falafel, okay? So in all of these shuks, you can get falafel, okay? And who would have known falafel was controversial? So the reason I bring this up is because there is a large push to acquire falafel and own falafel by individuals. And they're adamant. The falafel, yeah, I know. Everyone who's listening to this is going, oh, crap, where are you going? It's okay. Falafel was born, I will say this, in Arabic countries. No contest whatsoever. None whatsoever. But it is a Mizrahi and Sephardi staple food. Why is that? Because these individuals lived in these countries, and the argument that it can't be is the argument that Chinese people living in the United States can't order pizza. You know what I mean? The argument that it can't be an Israeli food is the argument that, and this is great because I actually have history with this. I used to go to a Mexican restaurant that was owned and operated by Chinese people in New York City. So there was not a Hispanic person in the entire building. We can't call that cultural appropriation. We call that business acumen. They're able to lock down a recipe, take care of it, adopt it, and use it. Why did they do it? One, because it was probably popular. Two, because they enjoyed eating it. Jews living in specific places throughout Syria, Egypt, Tunisia, all over, wherever falafelim were, falafel, the plural, were, these Jews ate falafel. These Jews ate hummus. These Jews ate pita. These Jews ate, what is it called? It's called meze, I think, which is Israeli salad. So what's important, and the entire reason that I'm bringing it up is that this concept of cultural appropriation and cultural thievery is bullshit. I don't swear on my podcast, but that's all it is. It's garbage. It's balagan. It's so funny because it's the one thing that is universal food. We all love to eat. We all live to eat. I've seen so many discussions calm down over food. It is peace negotiations between major countries are almost always done with a meal included. So this concept that what's mine is mine and you can't have it is garbage, because what do they say? The largest, what is the biggest compliment is when you, when you steal someone else's work. But just the fact that they can find greatness in it. The Israelis can find greatness in it. The fact that the Israelis can maintain a SHUK, that they didn't disintegrate it after the 1967 war, after the War of 1948, Independence War, after all of that, that they didn't decide. And what's interesting is that could have happened. Realistically, that could have happened. So we have a group of people who decided to start this country, but that was Mapai. And Mapai were secular. They were socialists. Some of them were even communists. And they were all about just being what they were. So they could have taken all of the things, all of the historical flavor that existed in that place, and they could have just scrubbed it. But they didn't. Like the Soviet Union did. The Soviet Union did that. When they would go into places, they would take, cultural heritage? Yeah, that's nice. You're Soviet now. You don't believe in anything except the state. But Mapai didn't do that. They did some other things, but they didn't do that. And it's such an inane argument, and it bothers me a lot, and it's hard to have a discussion about this by yourself. I've got some really great guests coming that I will be having this conversation with. But this concept of cultural appropriation really angers me, really bothers me. There are things that that people do. Like if there was a Jewish falafel stand in the old city, and he had the gumption to go and say, I invented falafel, and falafel is a Jewish invention, and there's no way an Arab did that. I would say, you're a knucklehead, you're a moron. But that's not what people are doing. People are saying, we were in these places, we are in this place, this is a part of who we are. It's part of our long story. It's a part of our long, rich history. You have individuals who live in Mexico, okay, who at some point married with indigenous peoples and brought their indigenous and their Spanish cultural beliefs and customs in together and merged them into what is now a rich Mexican culture. It's upsetting that the Jews aren't allowed to do that. It's upsetting that Israelis aren't allowed to do that. It's upsetting that, I don't know. That's basically it. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because I think we've added a lot, and I think there are I don't know. I think it's interesting. Little technical malfunction with this light I'm having over here, so I had to step away for a sec. Yeah, so that's all. It's frustrating. It's maddening. It's not a place I like to go into and talk about often. But it's a discussion that has to be had. And it's not like there's really going to be a solution to it. What I'm saying is that whenever somebody comes up and says, what are your favorite Israeli foods? I love falafel. That's not an Israeli food. That's an Arabic food. That's what I'm talking about. That's the argument, that need to have that knee-jerk reaction and pull it away from the Jewish state. And it's not something that's done anywhere else. It's just a frustration. It's just something I live with. So I thought that since I was talking about the SHUK, that would be an interesting place to take it into, because the article that I was reading was missing information, important information. And I think, it could just be that the individual who wrote it had never been to Israel, never knew anything about Israel. And that could be, and I could hope for that. But I tend to doubt it because I've run across things like this before. And the need to be territorial about hummus and to be territorial about falafel is a little bit maddening. There are bigger things to argue about, and if that's the one, you're kind of a punk. You're kind of pathetic. But I am giving you time by talking about it on this episode. But all right, so yeah, this one has a little bit of a funk to it. I'm sorry. It's a rough topic. It's not a fun topic. But it's a topic that needs to be brought up, and it's also a topic that needs to be discussed with two people. Holy cow! So, I look forward to comments. I look forward to questions. If you think that I am wrong, please hit me up. Talk to me. Try to engage with me about this subject, because it's a frustrating one, and it's one that needs to be maybe explored a little bit more. All right. That is pretty much it for this episode. I am going to wind it down by telling you guys about a couple of really great programs that I think that you guys should look into helping support. The first one is Ale. Ale helps children with complex disabilities receive state-of-the-art medical, educational, and rehabilitative care in Ale's 4 facilities. In addition, Ale provides thousands of outpatient treatments annually. Without Ale, many of these children would be forced to spend their lives in hospitals with no opportunities for rehabilitation, education, and the love and warmth of a home. Please visit www.ale.org. That's www.aleh.org, and see if there is a way that you can help. I'm actually speaking to someone from that organization. I spoke to someone yesterday. He gave me some information about lining up a guest when I'm in Israel from that organization. I'm really excited, and the person is huge. So I'll give you more info when I have it. The next one that I'd like you to check out is Schneider Children's Medical Center of Israel. It is the only comprehensive tertiary care hospital of its kind in the country and in the Middle East, offering the full range of pediatric disciplines under one roof to all children from 0 to 18. Since its establishment in 1991, Schneider Children's has revolutionized the practice of pediatric medicine in the country and has been recognized as one of the leading pediatric institutions in the world. To see what you can do for them, please visit www.schneider.org.il/ENG. That's www.schneider.org.il/ENG. Yeah, so if you could, go and help those. Definitely do what you can to help out those two programs. As I've told you before, I'm doing interviews. I'm going back to Israel in February. I'm actually going, when is it, the 10th through the 20th, and I will be there interviewing a bunch of really awesome people. And what I'd like is if maybe you could help. If you could give me, if you could go to our webpage, hit the PayPal button, and give me $2. If 25,000 people give me $2, we'll have it in no time. And that money goes towards airfare, lodging, transportation, all kinds of stuff that we need in order to run this production, basically, in another country. We have for that, we have a target budget of around $12,000 to $15,000. It's in a really great place. It's at the Sea Executive Suites, and it has to be in a really professional type of atmosphere for some of the guests that we're going to have on. So yeah, it's about $12,000 to $15,000. That's our budget for that. Plus, on top of that, we also want to go back in the summer. I wanted to go back last summer, wasn't able to raise the funds. I want to go back this coming summer, next summer, and film 6 of the episodes, the half-hour travel episodes, and that's a total budget of $50,000, and that's for a crew of 4 to do all of it. It's a lot of work, but it's totally worth it, and we love doing it to bring it to you so you can see why I love Israel. Warts and all. All right, thank you so much for joining us for the 12 Cities in Israel podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our feed and become a part of the 12 Cities in Israel community. You can find this podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify. And we'll be bringing you a brand new podcast every week, so keep your eyes out for that. Also, to help support this podcast, you can visit our Patreon page and become a regular donor. You can find that page at www.patreon.com/12 Cities in Israel, and that's the number 12 cities in Israel. And again, please hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Share us, help us get those numbers up. And also, please visit our YouTube channel where you can see a video version of this podcast, plus other videos that we have produced, including our full-length travel episode on the city of Beersheba in southern Israel. While you're there, share it and subscribe. Check us out at our website, www.12citiesinisrael.com, on our Facebook page and on Instagram, where every day I post a brand new picture from all of our Israeli travels. Check it out. They're a lot of fun. I put videos up there goofing off. It's a lot of fun. All right. That's it. תודה רבה. להתראות ויאללה ביי.
ביום ראשון אני לבד, ביום שני אני נבחן, ביום שלישי פעמיים כיתוב. והחיים כה מתוקים, עם צליל בוזוקי ותופים, אז מנגנים וגם שרים על אהבה. יושב לבד שם בקפה, כותב עלייך שירים